Yeshua, the prisoner replied promptly. Any surname? Ha-Nosri. Where do you come from? The town of Gamala, replied the prisoner, indicating with his head that there, somewhere far off to his right, in the north, was the town of Gamala. Who are you by blood? I don't know exactly, the arrested man replied animatedly, I don't remember my parents. I was told that my father was a Syrian. Where is your permanent residence? I have no permanent home, the prisoner answered shyly, I travel from town to town. That can be put more briefly, in a word, a vagrant, the procurator said, and asked, any family? None. I'm alone in the world. Can you read and write? Yes. Do you know any language besides Aramaic? Yes. Greek. A swollen eyelid rose, an eye clouded with suffering fixed the arrested man. The other eye remained shut. Pilate spoke in Greek. So it was you who was going to destroy the temple building and called on the people to do that? Here the prisoner again became animated, his eyes ceased to show fear, and he spoke in Greek. Never, here terror flashed in the prisoner's eyes, because he had nearly made a slip. Never, hegemon, never in my life was I going to destroy the temple building, nor did I incite anyone to this senseless act. Surprise showed on the face of the secretary, hunched over a low table and writing down the testimony. He raised his head, but immediately bent it to the parchment again. All sorts of people gather in this town for the feast. Among them there are magicians, astrologers, diviners and murderers, the procurator spoke in monotone, and occasionally also liars. You, for instance, are a liar. It is written clearly, incited to destroy the temple. People have testified to it. These good people, the prisoner spoke and, hastily adding hegemon, went on, haven't any learning and have confused everything I told them. Generally, I'm beginning to be afraid that this confusion may go on for a very long time. And all because he writes down the things I say incorrectly. Silence fell. By now both sick eyes rested heavily on the prisoner. I repeat to you, but for the last time, stop pretending that you're a madman, robber, Pilate said softly and monotonously, there's not much written in your record, but what there is enough to hang you. No, no, hegemon, the arrested man said, straining all over in his wish to convince, there's one with a goatskin parchment who follows me, follows me and keeps writing all the time. But once I peeked into this parchment and was horrified. I said decidedly nothing of what's written there. I implored him, burn your parchment, I beg you. But he tore it out of my hands and ran away. Who is that? Pilate asked squeamishly and touched his temple with his hand. Matthew Levi, the prisoner explained willingly. He used to be a tax collector, and I first met him on the road in Bethphage, where a fig grove juts out at an angle, and I got to talking with him. He treated me hostilely at first and even insulted me, that is, thought he insulted me, by calling me a dog. Here the prisoner smiled. I personally see nothing bad about this animal, that I should be offended by this word. The secretary stopped writing and stealthily cast a surprised glance, not at the arrested man, but at the procurator. However, after listening to me, he began to soften. Yeshua went on, finally threw the money down in the road and said he would go journeying with me. Pilate grinned with one cheek, baring yellow teeth, and said, turning his whole body towards the secretary, "Oh, city of Yerushalayim! What does one not hear in it? A tax collector, do you hear, threw money down in the road." Not knowing how to reply to that, the secretary found it necessary to repeat Pilate's smile. He said that henceforth money had become hateful to him. Yeshua explained Matthew Levi's strange action and added, and since then he has been my companion. His teeth still bared, the procurator glanced at the arrested man, then at the sun, steadily rising over the equestrian statues of the hippodrome, which lay far below to the right, and suddenly, in some sickening anguish, thought that the simplest thing would be to drive this strange robber off the balcony by uttering just 2 words. Hang him. To drive the convoy away as well, to leave the colonnade, go into the palace, order the room darkened, collapse on the bed, send for cold water, call in a plaintive voice for his dog Banga, and complain to him about the hemicrania. And the thought of poison suddenly flashed temptingly in the procurator's sick head. He gazed with dull eyes at the arrested man and was silent for a time, painfully trying to remember why there stood before him in the pitiless morning sunlight of Yerushalayim this prisoner with his face disfigured by beating, and what other utterly unnecessary questions he had to ask him. Matthew Levi? The sick man asked in a hoarse voice and closed his eyes. Yes, Matthew Levi, the high, tormenting voice came to him.